Welcome on into the 2-0 podcast version of your Saints victory 44-19 over the Cowboys in Dallas. Steve Geller and Jeff Nowak hanging out with you on Inside Black and Gold. And man, oh man, it was like week one. It was almost, you had those pinch me is this real vibes, and it just rolled right into the week two matchup on the road. Not expected at all again to start from this team and how they continue to just constantly put the pressure on that other team. And really a domination in Dallas, easy to say.
What just happened? What the hell just happened? Man, I'm excited. I've been, gosh, I feel like I've been waiting for this moment for like 2 years. Been like cocking back that dunk, waiting for today. Just, okay. I got a lot to say, but we don't have to say it all today because there's going to be a lot more time to go through a lot of this stuff. But man, that was satisfying. Was that not just the most satisfying win? Like, there have been a lot of great wins for the Saints in the last 2 decades, right? Like, since the Drew Brees era started and you had all these fantastic moments, I'm not sure there's a more satisfying just result from the perspective of no one believed in this team. Even after they beat the Panthers by 37 points, everyone was like, yeah, they don't play the Panthers every week. They're going to go to Dallas, and we're going to be like, oh, same old Saints. Oh, wouldn't you know, you go out to Dallas, and not only is it the same old Saints, it's the same old goddamn Cowboys. Everyone's been all damn week talking about, oh, they've won 16 games at home. Well, actually, guess what? They've now lost back-to-back games in that building in embarrassing fashion against the same defense that everyone said, oh, well, we got Mike Zimmer now. He's going to do so much better. I guess not. Man.
Obviously, for you, the atmosphere of Jerry World, that was your first time at AT&T Stadium for the Saints.
Jerry World? It didn't feel like Jerry's house.
No, right.
Like somebody else's house. The Saints had a goddamn parade in the building, and then the fans went outside and had a parade. I have never seen anything like this. Tell me the other fan base in the NFL that shows up to another building with a tuba. With a goddamn tuba. That's not normal.
I can only imagine getting a tuba past pre-check has got to be annoying.
Now, I have a question. Is the tuba local? Did the tuba make the trip?
Right.
I have to imagine that there's local Saints fans who were ready for, like, I need to know whether someone was like, I'm so confident in what's going to happen in this game that I am bringing my entire brass band with me just in case we can start a second line outside the building.
Everybody better watch out. The Saints fans, you get back to having those petty Saints fans ready to, attack and just support this team blindly again. Watch out. Watch out.
Well, that's the thing. And that's what's been so frustrating over the last 2 years. And that's why it's been like, I've been trying to kind of battle against this idea of like, we can't be happy about things. We can't be happy about, well, we just won a game. We're going to be mediocre. We're trying to get better. We're not doing it the right way. You're not hitting the eject button every 2 years. And you're doing what's actually a lot more difficult, which is to be patient, right? Like everyone talks about the front office, like, oh, they're not ballsy enough to make these tough decisions. I tell you right now, it is a lot easier to do what the Panthers do, to do what the Giants do, to do what all these bad teams do and hit the eject button rather than allowing a head coach to build something. Because it takes a couple years, right? Like you got to dial things in, if any, and we're going to talk about the game. We're going to talk about the actual game, but we already knew going in that we felt good about Clint Kubiak and we're like, this is a good defense and whatever. That game, the most accurate takeaway from that game is, man, Pete Carmichael was really bad. Like, this is the same team. This is the same. They started 2-0 last year. Think about this. They started 2-0 last year. It didn't feel like this. Everything was just a slog. Every step you took felt like you were getting dragged back. I saw the funniest tweet I saw at was like, I think the exact words are like, Pete Carmichael owes Alvin Kamara reparations. And it's so true.
Well, AK's about to cash in though.
And then, well, and you start to wonder, it's like, okay, maybe it's like, okay, was it Pete? Is it maybe that Sean Payton's offense just isn't working anymore? Because go look at what's happening over there.
Oh, I thought Bo Nix was Drew Brees 2.0.
Yeah.
No?
I don't even, again, it's like rookie quarterbacks struggle. I try to tell people this every year, and they don't believe me until they watch whatever Caleb Williams tried to do last night. Daniels actually got a win yesterday. Just as an aside, because I didn't get to watch that game, and I'm glad I didn't, because the Giants became the first team in NFL history to score 3 touchdowns on offense, not allow a touchdown on defense, and lose because they didn't have a kicker. Because Graham Gano had his leg torn off in the beginning of the game, so they couldn't kick extra points, they couldn't kick field goals, and then Washington kicked 7 of them and won. Sorry, I just had to get that off my chest. That's the type of game that I feel like the Saints would have played, for the last 12 years. That's the type of frustrating, I think we were the better team, but we lost anyway.
No, seeing what this team has been able to do to start the season, Jeff, just every possession's a touchdown. What?
The first 6 of that game? The first 15 drives for the first team offense ended with points. That's 11 touchdowns.
This is the regular season, right?
I'm sorry?
We're in the regular season too. This isn't preseason football.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
As far as I know, oh man, I am so looking. One of the reasons that I took the time last week to go around and painstakingly document every single set of power rankings I could get my hands on was so that this week, when I get the opportunity to just dog walk all of these people, and as they move the Saints up from 24th to 6th, because they want to say the Cowboys are still good, and they have to come to terms with the fact that they were so goddamn wrong this whole time, with no reason, with no explanation other than everyone's agreeing with me. So I must be right. This team's bad. This head coach is bad. This coaching staff is bad. This quarterback is bad. I don't know. It's just sometimes the group is wrong.
That's what happens when you start following the group instead of being the individual thinker.
The best example I get, so World War Z, not exactly a cultural mecca of information, but one thing in that movie that I think is actually really, really smart is they're why was this country prepared for the zombie apocalypse? Well, because they have a rule that if they have a panel that if all 10 people agree on something, the 11th person, his job is to disagree and play that out regardless of how insane it sounds. And that's why they were prepared for the zombie apocalypse when no one else was. And I think we should have that same rule in sports. If there is a panel of people who all pick one team with no one questioning it, there should be someone sitting off to the side who gets okay, it's your job. Tell us why we're all wrong. Because this seems to happen way too often in sports. But first off, Steve, before I forget, let me tell you, before we get into this game, about my experience at the Ritz-Carlton.
Yeah, you text me, and I'm dying for this story, for sure.
Las Colinas. So, first of all, the Saints, apparently this is where they stayed when they got displaced for Ida. And I feel a lot less sympathetic for them now, knowing that they were at this resort hotel this whole time. Doesn't sound that bad. But I think they're very superstitious in how they book hotels, and that 38-3 win in Jacksonville after staying at that hotel was probably okay, yeah, we'll go back. Cause it wasn't convenient. It was a 30-minute drive. You could have stayed somewhere a lot closer and gotten in and out a lot easier. I think they stayed there because the vibes. But so I ordered room service. I didn't want to go out to dinner or anything. So I'm in the room. It's 10 o'clock. I don't want to take, leave the tray of food in my room. So I'm I'll put it out in the hallway. I'll press the button so they come get it. Now the rooms are a little there's this weird alcove between the room and the hallway. And so I throw a shirt on, a tank top, and I'm just all right, I'm going to go in the hallway, leave it. I walk out. not thinking about it. I have to go far enough from the door that I can't hold the door, and then click. So here I am at 10 p.m. No shoes, no socks, like just gym shorts and a tank top, and I'm standing there thinking, I'm gonna have to walk down through the lobby and like explain to these people that I actually am staying here. I know I look like a homeless person, but I am staying here. And so here I am at 10 o'clock at night, walking barefoot through this marble floored lobby of this $600 a night Ritz-Carlton hotel that I clearly do not belong in, and going up to the desk attendant. And I'm just like, guy, can you please get me out of here? And just need to go back to my room. Yeah. And the benefit of looking like you just locked yourself out of your room at 10 p.m. is they don't question you too hard when you do it.
Right.
But man, that was
they might have seen it a few times.
Nothing more jarring than that ice cold marble floor on your bare feet as you're like, God, I hope I don't run into a Saints player here.
At least you had pants on.
Well, I'm just glad I put a shirt on. I was like, I was about to take the tray out because I was going to bed. It was 10 o'clock and I'm old. I was about to take the tray out and I'm like, you know what? I'll put a shirt on just in case like I run into a housekeeper. And so it's like, I was like very close to that being like walking shirtless through the lobby. And like, keep in mind, there's like 80, 90 people in there. It's a fucking hotel lobby with 2 restaurants and a bar.
No, I guarantee. I wonder, like, from the hotel standpoint, how many times that does happen where you have I'm out of place. I know I'm like basically in my PJs or just underwear, whatever it is, and it's like I got locked out.
Well, and I very clearly don't belong in this building. Like, this is not my. These are not my people.
Of course you do.
Oh my God! But all right, let's hit a couple more things that happened in this segment, and then we'll go on. So it's almost exclusively good. There's really no negatives. We can talk about a couple things that went poorly in that game. A couple dumb penalties. I'm sure a defensive line coach is going to yell "fall on it" at some point in practice this week with that forced fumble. I think if you go back, you'll actually see Carl Granderson is the reason Chase Young didn't get the ball. So I think there will be an apology in film study, because what was happening is Carl was on the ground reaching for it and Chase was about to pick it up. And it looks like Carl, and he told me this in the locker room, he kind of reached out and like knocked it away. And that's why it kind of bounced. Like Chase was about to pick it up. And then Carl's hand just gets in there and just,
No, because initial reaction is Chase, just fall on it.
Well, he still should have just fallen on it, and that would have solved the problem. But, and I can't even be mad, because the image of Chase Young galloping 80 yards for a touchdown in the open field would have been marvelous. That would have been like the cherry on top of that just perfection of a game. Because like that dude can run. Like he doesn't have to run a lot, but like that dude's probably running a 4.40 if you got him in the combine today. Like,
he's getting that free agency resume ready.
He would have been gone. So I do. Carl did rob us of that moment, but it's a minor thing. Got to block better on PATs. That Blake Groupie missed extra point wasn't really on Blake. They got pressure up the middle. He blocked it. Like, can't do that. Just minor things that, like, in a close game, again, these would bite you. A couple bad Paulson Adebo penalties. I thought Paulson had a pretty solid game, but those 2 holding penalties were annoying.
All right, so have you looked at it? Because to me, the offensive line penalty for illegal man downfield was ridiculous.
I didn't see it. I haven't got a chance to go back and look at it. But I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like, whether it was a good call or not, you got to be careful. It's probably the only thing the offensive line did wrong the whole game. And this is fun. This is a game where there was like a legitimate PTSD moment with that CeeDee Lamb touchdown, because it looked almost identical to the Stefon Diggs touchdown, which Mike Zimmer on the field, maybe there's this like weird magical quality. There's 2 magical qualities that exist with Mike Zimmer. One is the Saints will miss a tackle on the sideline for a long touchdown in a moment where it's like, how the hell did that happen? But Alvin Kamara will also gain superhuman abilities to score 4 to 6 touchdowns in any given game. So, usually that'll even out, right?
Yeah, I feel like we even saw the return, obviously, of Matrix Alvin, where he's just able to shift and move the way he does with his body and balance, and seem to like slide off a lot of guys too, which was really awesome. I mean, the O-line definitely has my heart now after 2 games, and I obviously got to hope that continues. But man, I dogged them entirely going into this year, and they've been awesome.
Yeah, it was very similar to that touchdown against the Packers in 2020.
Yeah.
This time it was Cesar Ruiz instead of Eric McCoy kind of
follow the train
down the field with him. But like he said it felt like a practice rep. Like he didn't even have to run hard. And it's true. Like you watch him and he has this innate ability to kind of like maintain 10 yards of distance between any defender while never actually moving that fast. It's the wildest thing. But I guess like
Quicksilver in Marvel, and everything slows down and he's able to move through it.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like that way, right? Yeah, like like he's just processing things at a faster speed than everyone else, and everyone else is running really fast, and he's just like do. But I did. Cesar Ruiz had some funny comments about Alvin in the locker room. So let's hear that.
Bro, I was like, I know how many he had today.
He had 4.
Damn, Alvin Kamara, he's special, ain't he? Alvin Kamara, special, huh?
So how come you pulled the short straw? If all the starters go out and you stay in there, what's the deal there?
Because last week I got my time. Last week I got my time, so I got taken out last week. And it's cool. I like to say I played 100% of snaps. It's fun. If I ain't coming out, that's fine. I'm here to play football. So
Alvin, he was pretty adamant that even though 29, the age of running backs, that he wasn't like washed up. I mean, I'm sure you had the confidence in him.
Somebody said Alvin was washed up.
No.
I crashed out.
I think it's just kind of the general idea of 29-year-old running back.
I like messing with y'all. Ain't nobody washed up, man. It's Alvin Kamara, dog. Like, that's Alvin Kamara. Yeah. You know Alvin Kamara. Everybody know him. That's Alvin Kamara. So he's gonna do his thing, man. He's a phenomenal player, spectacular player to play with and watch. So I mean, he had a screen today where I just chased him because I just wanted to see him run. I was like, shoot, let me see how far we can get.
Does anyone do that better than him? Of not only running but scoring without ever seeming to break a sweat for 50 yards down the field?
Yeah, he trains hard. I mean, that dude is, he's a superior athlete, supreme athlete. So, doesn't shock me anymore, but it does shock me sometimes. I'm like, man, look at you, and it's to have that backfield we have, even with Alvin, Jamal, those guys. Jamal running hard, running through people. You got AK making people. It's just fun. It makes it fun, man. I love those guys.
So Caesar's funny because when he's one of the greatest examples of a guy who, when you put a couple of cameras in front of his face and ask him to do kind of a standard press conference interview, he's the most boring person on the goddamn planet. But when you just kind of get him in a corner by himself, he's actually hilarious. It's like, oh man, look at you, Alvin Kamara. That's Alvin Kamara.
We were loving the narrative. Yeah, you're right. With the 29-year-old running back, everybody's like, that's it, toast. You hit the wall, you're done with. And I mean, I know we've seen it during OTAs, mini camp, and obviously you were out in LA for training camp. But when he's out there, he's still clearly, to me, the best overall athlete or player on this team.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about this in the second segment. But yeah, like the thing is with Alvin, one of the reasons that never made sense to me was because Alvin never relied on, being a bull or, like he's always been kind of that elite contact balance, the ability to find space and run to it. Like, you don't need to be an elite athlete to do what he did, but you need to have that kind of innate ability to get into space and stay in space, right? And that's not an age thing. Like being older is not going to he'll be able to do that, run a screen like that until he's 50. And that's why the way he runs his running style it does age well, as opposed to like some of these other guys who rely a little bit more on those knees, if you will. But a couple more things. I didn't like how the Saints handled the end of half scenario on defense. I want to see them to be more aggressive there. And it's like really splitting hairs because you're won by 25. But like they allowed that field goal at the end of half a little too easily. And at some point this season, you're going to end up in a scenario, I imagine, I think, I don't know, at this point, all the evidence is to the contrary, but you're going to end up in a scenario where you might lose a game. And the other team's going to be trying to get a field goal to win a game in the final seconds. And like those are the issue with winning games the way the Saints have is you're not training those situations. So when you do end up in them, it's kind of a wild card of like, how do you handle it? That said, one more stat. One other thing: Taysom Hill, chest injury. He didn't look very happy coming off the field. Now, I wouldn't either if I had a chest injury. They said he went to get more imaging. He went to an area hospital. Ed Werder, same Ed Werder we had on WWL last week, said that they think it's minor. We'll see how it goes. Anytime you need to get extra imaging on a chest injury, you're worried about something torn, something fractured. I don't know exactly when it happened. It was late in the third quarter. So, you worry about like a pec injury or something like that. And those can be difficult, especially for a guy who plays as physically as Taysom. So that's going to be one thing. But one more stat that I will hit you with before we move on. And this is from Jeff Asher, who's on Twitter. He's Crimealytics. He's just a stat guy. And he's really good at parsing statistics, right? So sometimes I'll just ask him to throw me a stat. And the stat he gave me was that dating back to, I want to say 2000, there have been now 5 teams that have scored 40 plus points in each of their first 2 games of a season. That includes the 2006 Colts, the 2009 Saints, the 2013 Broncos, the 2020 Packers, and now the 2024 Saints. That 2006 Colts team went to the Super Bowl. That 2009 Saints team obviously went to the Super Bowl. That 2013 Broncos team went to the Super Bowl. That 2020 Packers team didn't go to the Super Bowl, but it did win 13 games and go to the NFC Championship. They lost to the Bucs and Tom Brady. The quarterbacks on these teams: Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning again, Aaron Rodgers, and Derek Carr. That's the list. That is a list of quarterbacks that have led their teams to back-to-back 40-point games to start a season. That is insane. That's a crazy list. And you could say, way too early. Fine. I'm just telling you what has happened here is not normal. Like, this is what happens for teams that you look at and say, this team could win a Super Bowl this year. And that's how quickly we have gone from this team might pick in the top 5 to this team genuinely you look at now and say, why not? Why can't they? With a offense capable of putting 40 points up on the Cowboys in their house and a defense that we know what they're capable of. That the only thing holding them back to this point has been an offense that has been anemic. So,
they say the confidence is contagious. This team believes, the offense believes every time they touch the ball, they're going down the field and scoring.
And now you're in a situation where the Superdome, which over the last few years I've been questioning how much of an advantage it really has been, just because there's been a lot of disappointment and a lot of bad performances, and the fans were understandably frustrated, and especially last year with the quarterback and the head coach. Now, and I mean, look around, like, are there people complaining? No, that stadium's going to be rocking. So I think you're going to get back to the Superdome being an advantage because they have hope. Man,
it's and overall too. Just Rashid Shaheed obviously has been a huge factor in games. Chris Olave's potential really hasn't even been on tap from Kubiak yet.
Well, you haven't. I mean, Derek only threw the ball 16 times in the game.
Right.
Like, Chris's game, considering, how many times Derek actually threw the ball, was pretty impressive. He had 4 catches, 84 yards. Should have had a touchdown. I think that was a touchdown, to be honest, at the goal line, but whatever. No, he caught more than 25% of Derek's completions. So it's not like you could say you were ignored when you run the ball for when Alvin gets 180 yards himself.
And then don't want to hear anything about the selfish Ohio State mentality, because that dude's out there blocking a hell of a lot too.
No, his approach has been great. But all right, let's wrap up that segment. We're going to come back. We're going to get into the studs portion, the 3-up, the whatever. It's just going to be the rest of the show is us talking about how fun everything is and how happy we all are, which this could change by next week. I don't care. It's been years since I've felt this way after a win. So I'm going to enjoy every second of it.
Back-to-back big showings. There was never any question in either one, and you're like, whoo.
Yeah, but week 1 was just the Panthers. That's all it was.
That's it. I know. That's why I was making sure we're in the regular season here. I'm still not believing it.
Hey, Steve, they're not going to play the Panthers every week. Hey, Steve, come on. They're not going to play the Cowboys every week. This is just how teams should look when they play a team like the Cowboys. I mean, they're just.
Who's that guy again? Micah something?
Micah? Yeah. I think his exact quote was, I felt like I was going through a maze as I was trying to get to the quarterback.
That's awesome.
That's a good feeling. That's nice to hear. But all right. This is Inside Black and Gold. I'm Jeff Nowak. That is Steve Geller. We will be right back. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. I am Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Geller. This is Saints Win Podcast. I think for the second consecutive week, we went through the entire first segment without saying the score of the actual game, because the score doesn't really matter because it wasn't even ever in doubt, but it was 44-19. And that honestly makes it sound closer than it was.
It was crazy watching the game and having the NFL GSIS up because I was ahead and I kept looking at Bobby because I don't want to ruin things. And I'm like, ruin it for him. And I'm like, there's no way that this is going on. It can't be right. And there was just one instance was like, oh, it was second and whatever. And then next thing you know, oh, it's first and goal at the 5. And I'm like, what's going on here?
That must have been the Chris Olave catch down the goal line. But yeah, it's funny because it's like back-to-back weeks where you feel like, hey, they could have put up 50 something if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Like the only reason you didn't was because you didn't have to. I mean, when's the last time you saw a backup quarterback finish a game for the Saints in a good way? Twice in a season. It doesn't happen very often. And like it did happen last year, but it was like, it's going to go down to kneel it. Like this is the second consecutive week you've had to have Jake Haener lead multiple possessions. Man, that's something that's remarkable. But let's kind of go into things that went well, right? And so the first thing, and like, I'm glad because I've been a Rashid Shaheed fan for longer than it was cool to be a Rashid Shaheed fan. And the second consecutive week, he's, this is a fact. He's on pace for 17 touchdowns this year, like 1,400 something yards, 60 catches. I don't think that on pace for number is going to hold up. But here's a clip of Deuce from the broadcast, kind of calling that moment before it happened, and then I have some more information about it.
At their own 30, they lead 7-3. They will be moving right to left here at AT&T Stadium.
Can I be greedy?
Yes, you can.
Give me something up top against the rookie.
That being Kalen Carson.
That's exactly right.
Saints break the huddle. Carson is on the far side, has Shaheed in front of him. Under center is Carr. Play action to Jamal Williams. He's looking deep, and he's throwing deep, and he's throwing for Shaheed. Shaheed makes the catch. 10, 5, Deuce. See you later. 5. No flags. 70 yards. You can be greedy, my friend, because it makes for a great touchdown.
Oh, man, I love this game.
Who needs Tony Romo? We got Deuce.
So here's the thing, and this is a bummer for me because only one person can corroborate this story, but he can corroborate this story. So if anyone who doesn't know how the sideline works, like I'll be on the sideline and say, hey, I got a note to start this opening drive, and Robert, the engineer, will be like, all right, I'll get to you so-and-so. And he was like, I'll get to you after the kickoff. And then, but here's the thing, Robert's doing 90 different things. Sometimes he forgets. And so I'll be like, okay, Robert, I got a note. They're like, all right, get to you after the kickoff. And then I'm like, he's not coming to me. They're not doing it. And I was like, by the way, I still have that note. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll get to you after this play sometime on this drive. We'll have time. And I was like, no, we won't. It's going to be a 70-yard touchdown right now. And then 30 seconds later, there's a 70-yard touchdown. And it's just a bummer because only I know that and Robert, but no one talks to Robert.
I'll definitely be getting your picks at the end of the week to make some bets, man.
I know I was really just joking, but it was like a very, very good call. But no, I mean, so Rashid and Deuce goes on in that clip to talk about it, and Derek talked about it as well. So let's hear Derek kind of talking about that play, because it really should have never happened.
It was cloud to his side, which is insane that he outran that. Cloud to his side, quarters on the left, my left. And I don't even know. I mean, God blessed him to be able to run really fast, and I just prayed that ball got there because he was I came out of that fake with the coverage, and I was like, I'm thinking Chris all the way. Like, I'm going to have to throw this on to Chris unless the corner gets there. I'll check it down. And as soon as I turn around, I saw Sheed already that far down the field. I was like, holy crap, he's outrunning him. Like the play, everyone's going to see it. Wow, what a play. The way he ran and the angle he took was so just elite. Like, I just wanted to hug him, afterwards. Like, thank you so much for seeing that the way that you saw that. Because I saw it, and I'm like, please see it. And he hit it, and I was like, oh, my gosh. Like, this guy, he's different. He's a game changer for sure.
Yeah, and so, like, that's the thing. You look at that play, and the throw should have gone to Chris underneath. Like, the way they played it. Like, the Cowboys played a coverage designed to take away Rashid over the top. Like, they over-leveraged themselves on the back end with the goal of not getting beat over the top. But he beat it anyway because he's just that level of fast. And, I talked to Derek about this last year, and he kind of talked a little bit about it in his press conference yesterday as well. Like, what makes Shaheed special is not just that he's fast. Now, I would guess he's got 4.2 speed, maybe low 4.3s, but, like, there's a lot of like Olympic sprinter caliber athletes in the NFL, right? These guys exist, but they're not all elite deep threats, right? Like you have some guys like a Tyreek Hill, but then you have guys like John Ross, right? Like if it was just about being fast, there would be a lot of these guys in the NFL. It's not necessarily just about the speed. It's about play speed. It's about how fast can you do complex things that are more than just running in a straight line downfield? How can you adjust? How can you track the ball? How can you catch a ball? How can you get off coverage while operating at top speed? And that is what separates Shaheed. The guy I compare him to, it's tough to compare him to Tyreek just because they're two completely different like builds of a receiver, and the way they run is very different, more fast twitch, whereas Shaheed's a lot smoother. The guy I compare him to is Deshaun Jackson, because he has that type of, okay, you can't play him one-on-one, right? And now is his route tree, is his screen game the same as a Tyreek, who has that short area quickness? Maybe not, in terms of, I think that's where you would say Tyreek is a different player, where you could get him the ball on a screen and he's going 90 yards because he just has that like inside ability. But Deshaun, I mean, as someone who watched a lot of Giants Eagles games growing up, man, Deshaun was just, he ruined so many days for the other team. The miracle of the Meadowlands 2, which is I like to go back and point out that's the only reason that Aaron Rodgers has a Super Bowl, because otherwise the Giants would have been in the playoffs and not the Packers that year. But it makes a difference, especially when you consider, like, okay, everyone talked about this Saints offense. It's like, well, they don't have enough of the playmakers, and they don't have the big names, and they don't have the CeeDee Lambs, and Alvin Kamara's old, and this and that and this and that. Well, yeah, but what you have is a combination of things that is very difficult to cover all at the same time. You have Alvin Kamara, who can make people miss in a phone booth. He can get in the screen game. He can get outside. He can plow through you if he needs to. So you have to protect that. And if you can run the ball successfully, suddenly you have to bring a safety down into the box and help there, or run base defense. Well, if you do that, then you're at risk for Rashid going for 70 yards over the top and ruining your day on one play. So how do you defend both those things? Well, you keep two safeties deep and you drop an extra linebacker into the box. And then, oh, wait, you have Chris Olave, who I would argue was a top 10 route runner in the NFL, who can create space over the middle of the field. And that's what happened. This game got away from the Cowboys because of those three things, because you were able to run the ball, because you were able to win over the top, and because you were able to get Chris Olave running by himself in the middle of the field. Trayvon Diggs, not even in the picture. So when you have all three of those things working, and then you can hit the screen game, and then you can get Taysom Hill, and then you can get guys on, that's how you win a game the way the Saints did. And Rashid is such a big part of unlocking that, because otherwise you could just, if you didn't have to sit back with two safeties, you could drop one down. You could take away some of the space in the run game. You could throw an extra guy on Chris going across the middle. It all works together in a way that is really, really remarkable. And Rashid is a huge part of that.
Awesome to see. And I know obviously fantasy folks love it. And especially when you can add in eventually the obviously yardage on special teams that he's going to provide too. We haven't seen that big, I feel like, bust the run that I can think of from anybody around the league right now at this kickoff rule.
There was one touchdown in week 1. I can't say that I've kept track of everything this week.
But if it was a big deal, a big return, I'm sure it'd be a highlight.
I mean, yeah, it's tough because I just haven't gotten a chance to go around, and I watched a lot of the Bears Texans game last night. Bears. I watched obviously the Saints game. I'm going to watch the Falcons Eagles game tonight, which is really helpful. When you're going to go against a team on a short week for them, and you're getting a chance to scout not only this week's opponent but next week's opponent at the same time. Like that's nice, right? If you're the Saints, you're like, man, this is really coming up us. But we're 2-0, and now the two teams we're going to play next are going to play each other, and we're going to get to read both of those teams at the same time. I like that idea. Now, there's a lot of things that went well in this game. We talked a good bit about Alvin Kamara. Here's a clip of Alvin kind of talking about, we heard from Caesar talking about that's Alvin Kamara. He's, who's saying he's washed, and that's that never really made sense. But the funny thing is earlier this season, I was kind of talking about, hey, if I'm Alvin, I'm not sitting there pouting because I didn't get the contract extension or the renegotiation or whatever that I wanted. I'm sitting there saying, fine, I'm going to make this way more expensive for you than it had to be.
Exactly.
And that's what we've seen over the first 2 weeks is if I'm the Saints, I'm like, guys, we should probably get this done now because if we wait until the end of the season, you could probably get away now with just giving him an extra year and maybe guaranteeing some money. And if you wait, then you're going to be dealing with other teams or paying him $28 million next year, which no one wants to do either. So anyway, but this is what Alvin said about, he talked in camp about this too. But he's talking about age and all that.
Back when you started training camp, you were pretty adamant that you weren't an aging running back. You still felt like you had a lot in the tank. So to show that through 2 weeks, how does that feel to show that you're still a guy?
It's no surprise to me, I think, and like I said, I don't look at a lot of news and stuff like that. I usually got to receive news from my brother or something, or my mom mad if somebody said something about me. But I feel good, I said, and I mean this, I feel like I can play until I feel like I don't want to play. And that's what I'm going to keep doing. It's fun. I feel like we're winning. I like being here. I like being around my teammates. I love the city. We just keep going. I'm 29. I guess I'm old in football years, but I don't feel old.
29 not looking too bad right now.
No, 29. It's like the fountain of youth. I do always get a kick out of it because it's he's 29. He's ancient. I'm like, oh, God.
The last 2 years for Alvin didn't help. I'm not going to say they were awful, but they weren't Alvin years.
The question that I had, and the only real question that was fair to ask was, okay, the last 2 years, is it about Alvin or is it about the offense? And is it about
clear then for sure?
Is it about what the hell was going on with Pete in this kind of antiquated scheme? And is that holding back Alvin Kamara? Because it always felt like, I watch this guy in practice. I watch this guy in camp. I don't see a guy who just looks slow. You'll see backs, right? You'll see guys come through. You'll see a Devontae Freeman come in and be like, that's not the Devontae Freeman I remember, right? David Johnson. I'm like, that's not, I'm excited about the name David Johnson, but the player David Johnson, that's not the same guy. I don't see that with Alvin. I never saw that with Alvin. And that's why it always kind of felt like, hey, let's see what happens if you upgrade your scheme and you update your scheme and you give him, you put him in a situation that he should be able to thrive in. And lo and behold, that's what you have. So it's cool to see that. The last thing we can talk about here, at least, in large part, we spent so much time this offseason talking about what's going to happen when this offensive line, when Trevor Penning, when whatever else happens, gets on the field. And man, sure, they survived the Panthers, but the Dallas Cowboys are a different animal. They got 6 sacks in week 1 against the Deshaun Watson. They got 17 QB hits. Not this time. In this game, they were credited with 1 sack, and it wasn't even really a sack. It was a play that Derek kind of scrambled out of the backfield instead of throwing it away, which he could have done. He kept it, tried to get the ball to the line of scrimmage, which I think was smart because it kept the clock running. And when you're up by 20-something points, keeping the clock running is more valuable than saving a yard. But it did go down as a sack because he technically got stopped behind the line of scrimmage with the ball in his hand. That was the sack. They got 1 QB hit in that entire game. You see that touchdown to Shaheed? Go back and watch Trevor. Go back and watch Trevor Penning one-on-one.
Serving up flapjacks.
Yeah, one-on-one with Micah Parsons. Like, that's the, oh no, what's going to happen matchup. And, we talked about this offseason kind of, okay, yeah, well, Clint Kubiak's scheme should be a lot more offensive line friendly. You can do things to help. Micah Parsons was talking about, I think we referenced this already, but he described it as like kind of going through a maze. Like a lot of times, and you did have Trevor kind of holding up one-on-one, but in a lot of instances you had, we talk a lot about the motion, right? Well, it's not just motion. A lot of times you're using that motion to create an extra blocker to come through and just have that guy chip on his way out, whether it's a tight end, whether it's a running back. Like you didn't have a lot of max protect in this game. Like you didn't have a lot of like, okay, well, we just got to do this because it's the only way you can block. And here's the thing. I went and watched the Bears game last night. Man, like he was getting pressure on every single play. Like it's not normal to see a quarterback just stand in the pocket like that against the team with that type of pass rush. But when you have that scheme and you can find ways to do it, it works. And then you're able to build confidence with guys like a Trevor Penning. And I got to talk to Trevor in the locker room after the game, and that's what he said.
How confident are you feeling right now after what this offense has been able to do the last couple weeks?
Yeah, I think all of us are very, very confident, and I think we're living up to what we believe we can do. And I still think there's a ton we can improve on, and we're going to keep going and getting better every week.
Yeah, and when you're able to run the ball the way you were today, there's a lot of talk about that Dallas pass rush and Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence and all those guys. I don't think they got a pressure, let alone a QB hit, maybe one. But how much when you're able to get downhill the way you were, how much does that help you in pass protection?
Yeah, I think that was our first thing that we talked about was this is a team that wants to have a team's drop back pass. They want to get their D-line, edge rushers. They want them all to pass rush. And I think we, minimize that by how New Orleans Saints play football. I mean, we're going to try to run the ball. We're going to pound. We're going to play physical, and that's what we did. And it limited them opportunities to play how they want to play. We played how we wanted to play.
In the preseason, I think Eric talked about the scheme, Clint's scheme, and said it's very offensive line friendly. Like you're able to create situations that don't force people to be put in under leveraged scenarios. Is that kind of what's played out over the first 2 weeks in your view of like the scheme has really benefited just everyone on this offense?
Yeah, for sure. It's I think it is a very O-line friendly. It's a lot of running, play action, nakeds, screen game. It's a lot of stuff that, as an O-lineman, you really appreciate, and it's a lot of fun to play in. So, credit to Clint and the whole offensive staff. It's a great offense, and we're going to continue to improve. And week by week, we're going to keep getting better and better.
Big Trev. Now, I feel like we're not going to talk enough about how, and this is the case a lot, and I'm going to try not to be too hard on fans who were all up in arms about everything a couple of weeks ago and are now all on board. There's room for everybody. Climb on. But I do think that we should sit here and recognize that 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, y'all were sitting there saying, cut Derek, bench Trevor, fire DA. And I am more than willing to say, hey, welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. Let's have a good time. But this dude, all he's done is go out there, work his ass off, and show through 2 weeks that he can be a quality NFL player. And for a player that has gotten trashed so relentlessly from all sides, now, I don't know how much of that he's even aware of. I don't know how much of that he pays attention to, but I think he knows he knows he got benched. He knows he was struggling. He knows that he's a first-round pick that everyone was saying is a bust. And so I'm proud of him. Like, that's really cool to see. And that's why when I talk about people are way too quick to quit on young players who are not finding success immediately, that's the type of example, because it's like sometimes some guys just need time. Cesar Ruiz was the same way. And so I think that's why when I talk to Cesar, he's like, I'm really proud of him because I went through the same shit, and it takes some time. And who knows? Who's to say whether Trevor can be a quality starter for his entire career? Maybe he ends up being a backup in the NFL. Maybe he ends up being a swing tackle. Maybe he kicks into guard. Maybe he does whatever. The fact is, you were able to have success with him at right tackle. Derek Carr didn't get touched in that game. Derek Carr didn't get touched in week 1. There's not going to be a more difficult pass rush matchup than the Dallas Cowboys. So I don't know. I just think we don't have to sit here and take victory laps and say Trevor Penning's the best thing ever. Suddenly that's a great pick. Suddenly whatever. But we should recognize what he's done and the work he's put in and the improvement he's made, because that's going to be a big thing. If this team, we talk about, okay, what is the upper echelon of what they can actually achieve this year? Well, I think a lot of it's going to come down to, okay, just how good is this offensive line? And how good can it be when the rookie left tackle, isn't battling his own back? Hopefully that's not a season-long thing, but I just thought it was cool to see him have that success.
With Trevor too, and I didn't even mind the unsportsmanlike penalty. I like seeing him mix it up. I mean, I think that might be a little easier to say, I guess, because it was such a cruise to victory kind of deal where maybe in a different situation it costs you more and is a lot more of a hindrance. But I was happy to see him unleash a little of that aggression too, especially against Dallas. I'm no fan of Dallas for sure.
Did you see what actually happened? Like it's annoying because in that stadium there's all these gigantic screens, but they never show anything on them. And no, so I still don't know what he actually did to earn that penalty.
No, it was definitely like cut away. You just saw a lot of pushing and shoving and flag went on him. But I don't know exactly what transpired either.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was like he pulled someone off the pile, kind of like Eric did last week. I think that's what I got from the broadcast. But yeah, the dumb penalties, you can't overlook them because,
right,
again, not every game's going to be like that. That's what I told Tali. It was like, this is your first 2 games in the NFL. I hate to break it to you, but they're not all going to be this easy. And he kind of joked. He was like, I don't want to say it was easy. I'm like, you could say it was easy. But no, and he's, you got to give him credit too. He battled through that back issue. He said he didn't really know until he got to the stadium how it was going to shake out. I watched him on the sideline throughout the game. He kept a heat wrap on it. I don't think he sat down the entire game. Like, he kept going on the bike, trying to keep it loose.
Yeah.
He wasn't moving as that particularly well. I think it kind of loosened up as the game went on. And as someone who's dealt with lower back stuff, I get it. Like, I've been there, and I'm not a 300-pound man. And so that becomes even more difficult, but he battled through that. And it tells you, like, this team, I think Dennis Allen on Friday said, like, hey, one of the reasons it's a lot easier to go through this with him is, a lot of rookies, you would miss 2 days of practice and you'd be like, we're not playing a rookie who doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing out there. Tally, I think they feel like he's ahead of the curve of where a rookie should be. That's what DA said. And like, that's telling of, hey, we're willing to put you on the field despite not getting practice reps on Thursday or Friday. And I thought he played well. I don't think it was his best game, but he definitely wasn't a liability. So
overall, the O-line plus along with the help they were able to get at times, really, it was a masterpiece of a game plan all around, because I did not expect that from a Cowboys front, like we talked about in the beginning. It's like all this, the pressure, the vaunted players that they have on there, and you're going to be in their house where things are rocking, and the Saints took the air right out of Jerry World real quick.
No question. One other thing I want to note, just before we move on and talk about the quarterback and the offensive coordinator more, the kids are going to be all right in the defensive back room, I think. DA said that Marshawn wanted to play in that game. He said that one of the main reason they didn't was because they didn't want to turn what's probably a 1 to 2 week injury into a 4 to 5 week injury, right? Because hamstrings are tough. They recur. You can make them worse. It's just one of those injuries that's really tough to gauge. And I believe him when he says that, but I don't believe that that's the only factor. I think the other factor is you feel really confident with the guys you can put in there, right? If you're not sitting there with Kool-Aid McKinstry and saying, no, we kind of want to see what this kid can do anyway, I think that conversation goes a lot differently. If you think, hey, we're going to throw in someone we have no faith in, then maybe you do make harder, or you have to think about that a lot harder. Instead, you send that second round pick in that you traded up to get. Thought he played well. I think he has a tendency to gamble a little bit, but he hits hard. He covers well. He and Alante Taylor, they tackle well.
Oh man, Alante, freaking awesome.
Alante, that play he had on the end around, or the reverse to Brandon Cooks, where he just gets off the line and just dumps him in the backfield. I feel like that's not a play he would have made last year. I feel like he wouldn't have read it as quickly. Maybe he makes a tackle a couple yards downfield, but he's not getting a TFL on that. The Saints just secondary was laying the wood in that game. Tyrann Mathieu. I remember a time when y'all were telling me Tyrann Mathieu didn't hit. Tyrann Mathieu doesn't hit hard anymore. He's too old.
Obviously, he was part of that mess up against CeeDee Lamb. But overall, he made up for it with another interception.
Yeah, who was it? Tolbert? I can't remember who it was that he just took his helmet off.
Right.
And it was a clean hit. It wasn't a dirty hit. I bet if you asked him, he'd say he's disappointed that he didn't wait an extra half second, so it would be a forced fumble.
I got to say, too, with the secondary, Paulson Adebo, man, good showing, obviously the penalties, but yeah, he worries with me a lot with how handsy he gets.
Yeah, that is it's tough because we're talking about a guy, when we complain about him, it's almost always when he's suddenly in a CB1 matchup against an elite receiver. And he's going to, if you're trying to ask him to lock up CeeDee Lamb, stuff's going to happen, right? But the fact that you can put him in that matchup and feel like he's going to battle and you're not definitely going to lose. This is CeeDee Lamb. There's a reason that he's going to get paid $35 million a year. You watch him out there. He's a beast. He is really freaking good. But that's the problem. Now, what's around him? He is now the focal point of that offense because you can't afford anything else. So
being field level, he really is that impressive, I guess, up close.
Dude, he is he's gotten bigger since the last time I saw him. He looks I remember him in college. I remember when he was with Oklahoma and they played LSU, and I always thought he's good, but he's he's smaller. Now he looks like DK Metcalf. He's built. And that's great, but here's the problem. You're looking at a team that now has $60 million a year dedicated to the quarterback, $30 million a year, something odd, dedicated to the wide receiver position. You're not going to be able to pay, elite offensive linemen. You're not going to be able to pay elite defensive linemen the way you'd want to. And you
still got to pay Parsons.
You got to pay Parsons. You paid Quentin Nelson, right? That's where it becomes difficult when you're just willing to say, hey, we're going to break the bank to keep all these guys around, and they're going to hold out and we're going to pay them anyway. So that's where you are. But, I was really impressed with what the young defensive backs did. And here's Ryan Clark was hilarious to follow on Twitter. He was just the Saints should come into these games with seatbelts. They're calling, man. They're locking you up. They don't even have their number one corner out there. They're just yo, you want to play? Let's go fucking play. Oh, and man, the turnaround on social media around this team from an analytical perspective, Colin Cowherd's out here tweeting, I guess the Saints are the best team that's ever existed in any sport. Like, what the hell? Kurt Benkert, he only made it 2 weeks. He tried to play it safe last week, and he was just like, oh, I guess the Panthers are a lot worse than we thought. And this week, he's like, I guess I'm not going to make any preseason predictions anymore because I look like a freaking fool. Like, when you're out there, and it is dangerous to have hardline takes, and that's why I'm more than happy to dunk on everybody this week. But like, when you go out there and say this team might be the number one pick in the draft, they might not win 2 games all year. And then not only do they start 2-0, they do it in such a fashion that you're like, is this the best team in the NFL? Like, how will, like, you expect people to take you seriously now on anything? Like, this is supposed to be your expertise, man. You're a football player. Like,
that's why we talk about it. And obviously the national media has no clue what goes on with this Saints building. That's why you follow the local folks that are around the team constantly.
Never has it become more obvious than now that all these national talking heads are just regurgitating the points handed to them by other people who don't really know what they're talking about and have never actually watched this team play. That was my take. Colin Cowherd, for the second consecutive week, said his best bet was to take the line against the Saints with the points. Last week, he told you to take the money line on the Panthers, who were 4-point underdogs. This week, he told you his best bet, hammer it. Cowboys -6.5. And my response to that was, I have never been more confident in my life that the guy talking hasn't actually watched either of these teams play. Because his take was like, the Cowboys are really good at home and the Saints didn't beat any playoff teams last year.
Really? Wow.
Cool. Fantastic. That's how you should be making these bets. Let's not talk about the fact that, so they were 1-3 against playoff teams last year, should have been 2-2. One of the losses was against the Bucs, a team they later beat. One of the losses was against the Packers, a team that they were ahead 17-0 in the fourth quarter and lost with Derek Carr sitting in a hospital room. The other playoff team lost was the Rams. But that Packers team that they should have beat, and in 9 times out of 10, you close out that game and you win. Probably 99 times out of 100, you close out that game and you win. That's the same Packers team that more recently had walked into AT&T Stadium and dog walked this team in the playoffs. So you're talking about that 1-3 record against playoff teams and leaving out the fact that they should have beat the team that went in and embarrassed. Anyway, it's just all of that. And it's so nice to see that not only get just taken down from the top rope, but to see it happen 2 weeks into the season and now have 15 weeks of people having to convalesce their own takes and be like, man, how do I save this? How do I rescue this so that I don't look like a fool? And the answer is you don't, because you are one. Anyway,
next will be the Saints beat the Cowboys. They're just fool's gold.
I mean, this is how teams are supposed to look when they play bad teams like the Cowboys.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Anyway, all right. Who Dat? We got one more segment to come out. I want to talk about Derek Carr and want to talk about how this idea that Derek Carr is a different guy is a lie. You're a different person. Derek Carr isn't different. You're different. We're going to talk about it. Anyway, I also have a comparison that I texted you last night and is not going to hold up, but I do want to get into it. I'm Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Geller. This is Inside Black and Gold. The Saints. Oh, look, they just scored again. We'll be right back. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold, the podcast where I yell now, but I don't yell because I'm angry. I yell because I'm happy, and I'm just yelling at the people who used to be angry and now feel dumb. That's Steve Geller. We're in the final segment of this podcast, and this is the time where I'm going to tell you Derek Carr is not a different person. Derek Carr is the same Derek Carr you were mad at last year. And I think this is an important take, because I've seen a lot of people on Twitter, and here, let's play a clip from Dennis Allen, and I'll tell you why this is significant to me.
Man, that's a hell of a win, guys. That's a good football team that we just beat. Okay, 16 regular season wins in a row. Okay, that was a good team. All right, now, okay, here's what we said. We said we had to come in here and play our brand of football. All right, and that's exactly what we did. We played the way the Saints have to play this game. All right? And look, hey, sometimes you just got to pop out and show them.
Certified boogeyman. I'm the one who upped the score with him. I'm glad he sang the edited version of that song. Let's say that. Second, it's like, hey, they played that song every day at practice during training camp. So I do wonder if that's just something Dennis Allen says now. But yes, he's quoting Kendrick Lamar. But no, it's hilarious because, for example, people will listen to that clip and they'll say, DA has aura now, right? The vibes, they're immaculate. And here's the thing. It's really not that. Like, these guys are the same guys. That's the type of thing he would have said last year. And the difference is not that he's now more confident. The difference is you like it now. The difference is you would have clowned that last year, and this year you're like, oh man, yeah. Like, it's that dating versus breakup situation. When you're dating someone, all their idiosyncrasies and their quirks and everything, you love them and they're endearing. And when you hate somebody, every little thing that they do that you might have found endearing is annoying. And that's the case with Dennis Allen. That's the case with Derek Carr. That's the case with Mickey Loomis. That's the case with whatever. When you are confident, when you're excited, and you see Derek Carr come out of the pile and hit the Michael Jackson, you're like, that's my quarterback, right? Last year, when he did stuff like that, you were like, who does this guy think he is? And I'm happy for him because, one thing that Derek, I think you've seen from him this year is like, he's just worked really hard, and that's
a lot more comfortable this year, though.
When you're winning, you're going to be more comfortable, right? When you feel like everything's going well, you're going to be more comfortable.
But that's part of, like, we're going to talk about here, that combination of him and Kubiak is a good mesh, where it just seemed very clunky with Carmichael last year.
Oh, it was, and that was the case with a lot of people. That was the case with Alvin Kamara. That was the case with Derek Carr, and that's why you change it, right? And the thing is, like, but here's the thing. Like, the reason I think this is significant is because it's not that Derek didn't play well at all last year.
Right.
It's not like the final month of the season wasn't a tidal shift in the type of quarterback play you were seeing from him. It was that no one gave him the credit for that in that moment because you didn't believe it. You thought it was a mirage. And I still have people saying like, well, the stats from last year weren't that good. And I'm like, no, they were elite. They were like the best in the NFL over the final month of the season. You just didn't see it get into the postseason. But like, now you look at that 48-17 win over the Falcons to close out the season. You look at that win over the Bucs in Tampa, and suddenly it doesn't look like, oh, well, too little, too late. It looks like, oh, we were revving up.
Right.
You were seeing a guy kind of coming into a situation and building chemistry with playmakers and the team kind of bonding. And you did carry that over. The question at the time was, hey, can you carry that over into another season? And the answer was yes, even though no one supported that idea. Right. And here's Alvin talking about that situation.
I mean, I'm always honest. I think he got a lot, maybe more than he deserved of last year, and I would be lying if I stood up here and told y'all that it didn't hurt him. I'm sure it hurt him, you know what I'm saying? Because I see what type of work he puts in, and I see the type of player that he is and the player that he wants to be and the type of teammate he is and the type of man he is. So, like, for him to come out and perform, like, it almost feels better for me seeing that than, me getting the success, because I know how hard he works, and I know, the city's been hard on him. You coming in, you trying to fill the shoes of Drew Brees that's been, that guy for so long. And, I mean, that's hard for anyone to do. But, I think Derek, he's taking on the challenge. He's working hard, and he just wants to lead, So, we following the leader.
When you see in the film room him taking a hit on a 60-yard TD pass now 2 weeks in a row, when you review the film tomorrow, like, what does that do for you?
I mean, that's kind of the epitome of what we talking about, right? Like he's a guy. Like he's gonna deliver. He wants to deliver. So he'll sacrifice himself to go up there and give Shea the opportunity to go score a bit, make an explosive play. That's just who he is. I mean, I give him his flowers, every day, but I don't want to sit up here and make it seem like he a charity case. Like, man, he a great quarterback, So I'm happy that he's getting the opportunity to showcase that.
AK's so cool.
You talk about aura, right? The guy who will never lose aura. It's AK. But no, so like that's the thing with Derek, and last year it was funny because it was like you had a guy who was playing hurt. You had a guy who had a significant shoulder injury in week 3. Maybe shouldn't have played through it, but that's just who he is he's a guy who, if he can get on the field, he's going to get on the field. And there were people saying that was selfish. There's people saying whatever. I think he was just trying to prove something to his teammates, to the fans. And for whatever reason, it just never worked. It just never resonated in the way that, when Drew Brees is out there playing through a separated shoulder, everyone's like, what a warrior, what a goddamn warrior. And for Derek, it was like, what a selfish guy. And that's why I think it's significant when people say like, oh, he's different now, he's changed. I don't think that's true. Like there was a take after the Panthers game, and I saw a few people was like, oh, we bullied the Saints into being better. And I was like, here's the thing. No, you didn't, because everything that you said they should do, they didn't do. They didn't fire the coach. They didn't bench the quarterback. They didn't put the rookie in. They didn't do all of these things that you said. They've stayed the course, and they felt like, no, we think Derek's a good quarterback. We think this roster has a good balance of veterans and young players and developing players, and we think we can change things around these guys and improve. And that's what happened. Now, I will give you some credit, because I do think you bullied Derek Carr into being a better player. and I don't mean that in the sense that you were mean to him and suddenly he remembered, that's right, I'm a good quarterback. I'm going to show these guys. I do think you created a monster. And I've said this about guys like Tom Brady, guys like Joe Burrow. And it's like, what was the genesis of them becoming this crazy, insane, I'm going to just work harder than everybody else?
And I'll fucking show you, right? For
Tom Brady, it was, being the 6th round pick and no one giving him credit coming out of Michigan. And so he was like, he's like, and I took that personally, right? Yep. With Joe Burrow, it was getting beat out by Dwayne Haskins at Ohio State and going to LSU. I'm like, okay. And I took that personally. And I was talking to Mike Haas, on the bus ride back from the airport, and I was like, this start for the Saints season reminds me of LSU in 2019, because LSU sat there that entire preseason and said, hey, we're going to score 45 points a game, and we all were like, oh, Joe, you're adorable.
Oh, that's cute, right?
You're adorable. Then they went out and did it, and we were like,
oh,
yo, is this for real? Is this actually happening? And it wasn't until they went to Texas and scored on like every possession against Texas that we were like, well, this might be legit. This might be for real. And that was created because Joe had that kind of impetus to be like, you know what? No, I'm not taking a day off. I'm being that insane worker. I'm being that insane leader. And I don't know. I'm not to say that Derek hasn't done that throughout his career in terms of being a hard worker, being a leader, but he walked into a starting job on day one. No one questioned whether he was a good quarterback. They questioned, what was his ceiling? But then he comes to the Saints, and suddenly, after being on the Raiders for 10 years and kind of being told, hey, you are the starter, we believe in you, suddenly you're like, they're booing me. And I know they're booing me, because when I run off the field, they boo, or when I run off the field, they cheer. And when I run back on the field, they boo. They're booing me. Man. It really was. And it's like, I give him credit for being a much more stable-minded individual than me, because I would have been like, fuck you. Like, you can all fuck all the way off.
I think that's part of it, though. That definitely fuels him.
Maybe in his head he was thinking that, but he turned that into a positive thing.
Yes, for sure.
And that's why when you hear him say like, hey, and I kind of rolled my eyes when he said this the first time, but now I believe it. He was like, guys, I ran every practice this year twice. Right. I went out there before every training camp practice with the assistant coaches and ran through the entire practice. Then everyone else showed up and we did the practice again. and he's like, and that helped me. And he's talked to Drew Brees, he's talked to Peyton Manning, he's talked to these guys about like, hey, how do you do it? And Peyton's a great guy to talk to because he did it with Denver, right? Like he had to do that thing where he proved it all over again. And he went, that was one of those teams we talked about scoring 40 plus points in the first 2 games of the season, as it only happened like 5 times in the last 2 decades. Peyton Manning with the Broncos was one of those. He also did it with the Colts, but like everyone had quit on Peyton Manning when he went to Denver. Like, I don't think people remember that necessarily, but like there was this idea at the time that it was like, nah, he's washed. Denver's making a mistake.
Right. That neck injury, he should just hang him up.
Yeah. He had that neck injury. When he won the Super Bowl, it was funny because it's like his best seasons were the 2 years before that. And then he won the Super Bowl against the Panthers, but like he rode the bus for that one. But like he was the best quarterback in football for those 2 years with Denver. And he just put on 2 gloves and he did his thing. There was he made Julius Thomas into like the best tight end in football. I remember at the time, one of my good friends in Myrtle Beach, who he passed away recently, but he owned a bar and I would go there because he would always put on the Giants games for me. And he was like, I love Julius Thomas, but you could put a shopping cart with a hand on it and roll it down the field, and Peyton Manning would turn that guy into like an 80 catch, 1,000-yard receiver. Like it's about Peyton. It's not about Julius Thomas. And I just think like that's a factor. That's a real thing that happens with quarterbacks. And it was fitting that Tom Brady was calling that game because you could tell he was impressed on both sides of the ball with everything the Saints were doing. And I don't know. I'm just really happy that we've gotten to this point and that everyone can now kind of appreciate what the Saints put into this offseason and what they're now pulling out of this offseason.
They've set a hell of a standard though now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what you got to do. It's what, like when no one's paying attention to you, you got to force them. Like, no. Sometimes you got to, what did I say? Sometimes you got to pop out and show them.
Freaking DA now. I mean, between him and Derek Carr doing, Michael Jackson moves, it really is like, what the hell is going on right now?
Yeah. And no, don't worry. We have more on that. Here's what Derek said about that dance move.
How much time was spent in front of the mirror working on that Michael Jackson?
See, that's not much time in front of the mirror. I'm a dancer in my day, and so don't let the 4 kids fool you. I had to lure their mom in somehow. You know what I mean?
Did you have to explain what that was to Hainer and Rattler? Did they have any idea what you were doing?
Good. That's a really good point. But to their credit, they knew who he was, and so that's a good question. I should have used that one.
But how did that come up with your brothers? Like, do they throw ideas at you?
No, I'm a dancer. People don't know a lot of stuff about me, but they see me like all the time at weddings or birthdays and music. I'm always dancing, and so one time I hit the Michael Jackson. They were like, "Bro, you got to do that when you score one time." So I did it, and they made an edit, and I posted it. And that's how it went.
He was running around in the locker room like DeMario was talking to the media, and he didn't see it, and he was just like, "Wait, what? He did what?" And then Derek was like, "I got you." And he showed him the video. And, Alvin said he gives like, "Dude, look at this." But no, if you haven't done this yet, and now we have all these Derek Carr fans all of a sudden, and you're going to want to consume all this Derek Carr content, do yourself a favor, go Google Derek Carr educational employees credit union commercials.
Right.
Because he and his brother, David, have an entire series of commercials for this bank that are actually hilarious. And I've been wanting to bring them up for a while, but there's been so much resentment toward Derek that it was like, people are just going to clown him for this if I bring it up. There's one that we played last year where he jokes about the eyeliner thing because he gets clowned for he's got these really dark eyelashes and it looks like he's wearing eyeliner. And he's like, oh, it's called guyliner. But there's one of the commercials is him doing this like elaborate dance sequence. And I did ask him about that. They cut it out. They cut it out of the press conference. I don't know why. It's like maybe they didn't want to advertise for employee, the EECU, whatever. But it's cool to see him kind of it's frustrating knowing how much fun the Saints team can be and the fan base can have supporting this team. And then watching at every turn, everything that could be fun being weaponized and turned into this toxic poison dart that's aimed at like killing any amount of, hey, we could be having fun right now. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to be mad. And I feel like we're finally getting to the point where we can all have fun again. And I enjoy that a lot.
You haven't seen this much personality out of Derek, at least here. And obviously he was getting, broken in year one in New Orleans. And like we mentioned before too, it wasn't so smooth in the Pete Carmichael scheme. And I guess moving here too puts a lot of taxing on your life, and your life ends up spilling into your work.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of that affected him, whether you want to, admit that or recognize that. But I think he has totally acknowledged the fact that getting, accustomed and acclimated to New Orleans wasn't as easy as he even thought.
No, it was a struggle. And, and I think that's what a lot of people are reacting to is they wanted it to be easy. They wanted it to work right away.
You just plug and play, right?
And it just didn't work the way that anyone intended. Now, one thing we haven't talked about nearly enough, and that's on me. We should have talked about it more. Clint Kubiak has turned into the perfect fit in the way that he has started his Saints career. I don't know if you could have imagined a better scenario. I really don't. Like, it's been perfect. And part of it's that like he's so boring. And
I love it.
He's just, here's the thing.
I feel like that's part of the evil genius, I think, about him. He's like, I know how to play the media even too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that's just kind of part of his DNA, but like, I don't even know if there's anything special to that beyond like, I am boring, but it's a good thing because I know what I need to know and I do what I need to do. And just, I don't talk about a lot of stuff that happens on the plane because I don't think we're supposed to. And, it's kind of weird, but this is I don't think they'll get mad at me for sharing this. The plane we got on in Dallas, they only had normally they'll have two ladders or two things to climb up into the plane on, like one in the back, which is where the pores go, and then one in the front, which is the players and the team and the coaches and everything. That's where they go. Well, in this case, there was only the one in the front. So as we loaded the plane, they obviously let the players and coaches out first. But that means that the pores and me, we have to walk through that area to get to our seats. And so normally I don't see what's going on in the front of the plane. This time I did, and you think, hey, you just beat the Cowboys 44-19. You just, what a win, what a day. Celebrate a little, right? So, the players are having a good time. They're talking. I'm walking back, and, Clint is sitting there not talking to anybody. He's going through film, and he's got pages of notes already. He clearly spent, he got on the bus. Who knows when he started? Maybe he started in the stadium. He's clearly going through, because he had only been on the plane for a minute or two before I got on the plane. So this is all stuff that had been done on the bus on the way from the stadium. He was already going, he talk about 24-hour rule. He might not have a 24-minute rule of that's the, you kind of have to be kind of this crazy maniacal worker to succeed in the NFL.
Yeah.
And, from that perspective, I was no shit. He's already I know they do the film study on the flight. Usually they wait until you get in the air, he's already, I thought that was so telling of okay, why is he having so much success so early? Because that's the type of person he is. He's not going to waste a second. Honestly, the only thing that's gone badly for him and the Saints in terms of his tenure is that if things keep going this way, you're only going to get 1 year of him because he's going to end up being a head coach next year.
I said that too to Bobby as we're watching the game. I'm like, he's going to be the hot name for a head coach somewhere.
Well, and that is the problem when you have a defensive head coach, because you kind of need to have that rock star offensive coordinator. That's why the Pete Carmichael thing was always stupid to me, because it was you need someone who can command that offense and be a person, be his own person, not just a weird reflection of Sean. But that's the issue, right? Look at Detroit with Ben Johnson. He's still there, but he was the name last year. Bobby Slowick in Houston, they were able to keep him, but he was a name that everyone was interviewing. This year, you're going to have Clint. It's going to be the same situation. You look at that Commander staff. You look at the Patriots staffs. Anytime you have a team that's winning at a high level, you're going to get poached. And
they're coming.
Yeah. But all right, pure vibes. Last thing I will leave you with is Bobby on the post-game show. We didn't talk much about the post-game show. You said he was punching you all day. I'm sure you have a bruise or two because he was having a great
animated A-Bear for sure.
I don't know if anyone enjoys a win over the Cowboys quite like a Bobby Hebert enjoys the win over the Cowboys. Like it's different for him. It means something more when it's at the expense of the Cowboys. And I thought this was the best part of his take personally. A lot of you probably have already seen this if you're watching this on YouTube because it did post on YouTube, but this is toward the end. I found this part to be just hilarious.
It was almost I like saying this is almost too good to be true. I wanted the game to be over at halftime because I was so excited. But you know what? That's how confident our team is. Halftime, no, we want 2 more quarters to keep whipping that ass, to keep whooping Dallas, to keep the Cowgirls down. They say, they have home field advantage. I think the Who Dat chant was the advantage in that stadium today.
Snapped.
The streak snapped. But that got snapped when Green Bay whipped him in the postseason. And you know why Green Bay whipped him? What we did. What did Green Bay do that we did? Ran the football. Run the football. Run it right down their throat. What about like Micah Parsons? Okay, Micah Parsons, he's sexy and he does podcasts and all that kind of stuff and tells you how good he is. You can sack the quarterback. You know what you do? You run right at that son of a gun. You run right at him. You know what he had? He had 3 total tackles. Oh, you know what? DeMarco Lawrence, he had 2. They were non-factors. You got to make a run at them. Don't let them pin their ears back and rush the passer, rush the quarterback. Listen, it was so memorable, this game. I think, truly, even though Sean Payton and Drew Brees, what they accomplished, considering the expectations, this is so satisfying, this ass-whipping of Dallas. They got humbled. It's the most humbling experience, I guarantee you, Jerry Jones has ever had in his life.
And what a start for the Saints, back-to-back butt whoopings.
And the team that beat him is Miss Gail Benson, the nicest lady in the world. The nicest lady in the world went to Big D, went to Jerry's World, and whipped that behind. Whipped him. You cannot sugarcoat. You not say, what if this would have happened, that would have happened. No, it was so satisfying. Again, it's only 2-0. I'll tell you, Steve, after the first 6 games, I hope we would be 3-3. But now that we're 2-0 right now, listen, I want to beat Philadelphia in the Dome. And I want to beat Kansas City and play there on Monday night.
I just love that. It's like the nicest lady in the world went and just embarrassed Jerry Jones. It's just so easy to clown Jerry. He's like he's like the emperor in Star Wars.
Right.
Even like his and when you watch him in the draft, his
Death Star is impressive. I got to give him that though. I'm sure you do too. I mean, it's massive. It looks nice, but yes, very corporate, evil empire-ish, I guess is the best way to put that.
See, I don't know. The best thing I heard yesterday was that the star at midfield, it's actually not a logo. It's a rating.
Oh, boom.
It's one star rating.
Just one.
Yeah. That's why if you go on like TripAdvisor, you do 1 star. Always make sure every Cowboys related thing gets 1 star because that's what they want. They just want the 1. It's woo! What a day! What a day! But all right, I think we've done it. I know this pod was a little all over the place, but we did what we could.
Victory Mondays, baby, they're the best.
Man, I mean, this season could be a lot of fun. And I'm glad because the last 2 seasons haven't been fun.
Yeah, now we get to scout a game on Monday Night Football about your upcoming opponent and also a division rival. So kudos to Monday Night Football tonight.
Yeah, and now DA is going to have to work a lot harder to come up with reasons to get motivated in pregame speeches. Wow, I man, forgot a word there. Yeah, there's the speeches. Yeah, because I don't think that I think that there's going to be an overcorrection here really fast in terms of the national conversation around this team. It's going to be interesting to see how that kind of relates if like the Eagles go out and lose to the Falcons or whatever tonight on Monday Night Football, how that conversation is going to be coming in. Because when you're good for a while and then you start to lose and another team kind of takes your place, Cowboys, Eagles, then suddenly the conversation becomes, well, who's on a hot seat now?
I haven't noticed today, honestly, with the national folks. Is it more, are they giving the Saints their praise, or is it kind of like, man, the Cowboys are terrible?
Well, the Stephen A. Smiths of the world are going to freak out about the Cowboys and say this is about the Cowboys and not the Saints, because that's what they do. I think the Saints offense is getting its praise, and everyone already kind of appreciates the defense. So
right.
No, I think that the national conversation is going to change on a dime. That's why it was always funny to me. Last week I went through the power rankings and with the sole purpose so that this week I could come and dunk on them even harder with documentation.
Well, now you can do the Michael Jackson on them, like Derek.
All right. This is Inside Black and Gold. Who Dat? 2-0.
Let's go.
Thanks, Joe.